righteousness, wrongdoing. Two forces constantly at an endless war with each other. We experience these things all the time in our daily lives, whether that be a horrific crime on the news, a charitable yet tough decision to make in your own life, or as expressed through fictional characters in popular media. One such example of fictionality that touches on moral themes is one that you may have never guessed in a million years: Pokemon. As lighthearted and fantasy-like as these games are, there are subtle nods to the concept of morality littered throughout the series. But these plot points aren't as simple as good versus evil. Just like in real life, nothing is ever black and white, and what you choose to do with the gray of it all will reveal your true self. Today, I wanted to touch on the tragically unfinished story of Pokemon X and Y, as with Legends EA releasing in just a few short months, we may finally get the closure to a decade-long open book. One that, if you paid close attention to, showcases that Pokemon is not only about collecting creatures, it's a whole ocean of emotions and complexities. To start, I want to take a look at an interaction with an NPC that you may have missed or not thought much about during your playthrough. It's more lighthearted than the later topics, but still very emotionally striking. Anistar City is an interesting place. In the north is a large sundial that unlocks certain mega evolutions in the postgame, and this enigmatic interstellar structure is fitting for the psychic-type gym that resides here. However, if you happen to be the more adventurous type, or just someone who likes to break into houses, in one of the homes, you'll encounter an old, lonely man. By talking to him, he mentions how hopeless he feels due to the recent death of his wife. He asks the player for a level 5 or lower Pokemon to keep him company, just for a brief while. Now, given that you're near the end of the game, it's unlikely that you'd have any low-leveled Pokemon. And why would you bother flying to an earlier route just to catch a weak Pokemon for this random man? However, if you do happen to have one, or are gracious enough to catch one and donate it to him, he'll thank you for your generosity. And that's that. Or at least, that's what you'd think. Because if you return after beating the game, you'll be met with a letter stating that the man has sadly passed away. As a thank you, he left a Comet Shard, an incredibly valuable item that can only be obtained elsewhere in the Battle Chateau. But the measly resale value of 15,000 Pokédollars is nothing when you consider the priceless value you gave this elderly man during his last moments on Earth. But there's one strange quirk that makes this even more emotional. If you choose not to give him a Pokemon, when you return to his house after beating the game, he'll still be there, just hopelessly walking around, almost as if the emotional pain is dragging him down from being able to fully move on, not just from the death of his wife, but from life altogether. By easing him from the pain and giving him just one thing to look forward to every morning, you're able to release him from his grief and hopefully be able to meet up with his wife again in the afterlife. This little side quest is completely optional. You're not required to deliver him a Pokemon, let alone enter his generic-looking house. The only thing standing between his continued suffering and peaceful death is your own goodwill. Next, I want to talk about by far the most important new feature in Gen 6. No, it's not the fairy type. No, it's not making the EXP share overpowered. It's Mega Evolution. I feel like this is an obvious thing to discuss given that we're finally getting them back after over 7 years, and we're getting brand new ones. From a gameplay perspective, this is awesome. Forgotten, underpowered Pokemon can finally get some time in the spotlight thanks to getting a massive stat boost. While I'm sure all of you, as well as myself, will probably be using Mega Evolution in their Legends ZA playthroughs, I wanted to take a look into the horrors of this phenomenon, because the process of Mega Evolving is not all roses and dandelions. In fact, it's implied to be straight up harmful to the Pokemon. Even if it's never explicitly mentioned by any NPC, Mega Evolution causes a Pokemon to unleash every ounce of its energy at once. That would make you think that this is the ultimate form of loyalty or bonding between the trainer and Pokemon. But if you look a little bit deeper, hidden in the Pokédex entries, you'll see that this process is something much more sinister. For example, Mega Gyarados' brain is completely sapped of any form of empathy, its only thought being to destroy anything in its path. Mega Glalie jaw becomes dislocated upon Mega Evolving. That can't be fun to recover from after every battle. Mega Tyranitar's back is literally split open. I could keep going, but you get the point. Mega Evolution, despite the mystery shrouding it, is clearly something whose consequences and destructive tendencies are nowhere near understood yet, and are probably something that shouldn't be used like toys. And the worst part is, you, a child, are gifted this monstrous ring of power and torment with no concern of its implications. You are the one who decides when and if your beloved friend gets to be tortured for your power. Well, after all, they do say, greed is the killer of the mind. The Pokemon universe is a place that shares many parallels with our world, but has some key distinctions, both for better and worse. However, one aspect that Game Freak definitely didn't fantasize about or sugarcoat was geography. At first glance, the Kalos region seems no different from any other region. It's got towns, cities, islands, forests, oceans, everything typical of a region of the world. However, I feel like Kalos represents social inequality more than any other region in the series. Think about it. Places like Kanto and Hoenn do have places that are more rural or industrialized than others, but with Kalos, there's clearly a major wealth and social status divide, with the entire region being centered around Lumio City, the region's only metropolis. This is further supported by the fact that Legends EA is completely focused on this city. Given that Kalos was inspired by France, it's pretty obvious that Lumio City is supposed to represent Paris, and along with that, acts as a parallel to the major economic divide that metropolitan and rural settlements face. Like I said, there's Lumios, the bustling powerhouse that contains the majority of the region's population, but then you have places like Coumarine City and Cambrier Town, who feed off and rely on the city's tourism and economic productivity. And let's not forget about the infamous Route 13 Badlands, whose power plant and infertile land suggests that perhaps the dedication to Lumio City is at the cost of the environment. Eventually, nature's patience will run out, and as a result, Kalos will become swallowed whole by its undying need for greed and industry. But hey, Kanto has its own power plant, and Unova also has a bustling city, so maybe I'm just being hard on Kalos, right? Well, I would love to say that, but unfortunately, the forces of social inequality and elitism are only further reinforced by the game's villainous team, Team Flare. For most of the game, Team Flare presents themselves as just your generic take over the world and steal stuff evil group, seemingly no more threatening or evil than the goofy antics of Team Rocket. However, upon closer inspection, there's a lot to unpack here. Most interestingly is the group's leader, Lysander, who is first encountered in Lumio City. He states that his main desire is to create a beautiful world, his definition being a world devoid of negativity, conflict, or ugliness. That sounds pretty reasonable at first. After all, who would want to live in a world filled with war and sadness? But this is merely a guise to his true intentions. Beneath the city, the player witnesses the true, sketchy operations hiding underneath the surface. We learn that beauty, in his eyes, is almost entirely material. Wealth, power, glamour, and worthiness are what he views as beautiful. All traits that coincidentally belong to Team Flare. In this purified world, only the elite remain, with the overpopulated, poor, and useless majority being non-existent. To create such a world, his solution is to wake up the legendary Pokemon, activate the ultimate weapon, and obliterate the world as it is. Thankfully, the player is able to foil Team Flare's plans before Lysander is able to do this, although Geosenge Town is destroyed in the process. I feel like Lysander's ambition is fascinating because it's not just your average black and white terrorism. For a while, his beliefs sound reasonable, and even relatable. The society that we live in is one tainted by acts of evil, conflict, and social conditioning, experiences and stigmas that only seem to get worse with time. But ironically, his idea of beauty is just that, a reflection of his evil wishes to get rid of whom he perceives to be unworthy, having zero regards or sympathy for their individuality. Most glaring of all, this is all just his own projection of elitist social ideals. Instead of fixing what has already been done, he opts to try and erase whatever flaws exist in the world, and whoever's beliefs don't directly align with his will be eliminated without hesitation. It's his way or the highway. He fails to realize that true beauty is not made by crushing whatever is deemed imperfect, because nothing is or will ever be as perfect as you want it to be. True beauty is made by accepting imperfection and instead focusing on being the best you can be in the moment. Unfortunately, none of this matters to Lysander, because he has what most don't: wealth. What Team Flare's ambitions and Kalos' geography showcase is that under external prosperity often lies the poorest of souls. Finally, let's talk about one of the most mysterious and tragically untouched characters in probably all of Pokemon history, AZ. Despite interacting with him only a few times throughout the game, the stories he has to share depict a world of grief, remorse, and a forewarning of what is to come with Team Flare. He's depicted as a giant, lone old man aimlessly searching the region for his one lost love, his Floette. It's a Pokemon that he's been hunting for millennia, his longevity becoming a lifelong emotional curse, much like the old man I talked about earlier. But the thing is, the loss of his Pokemon is much deeper than a simple lost pet case. You see, AZ's search isn't a physical one, it's a spiritual one that illustrates the mental hurdle that he's been struggling to get over for his entire life. Thousands of years ago, an ancient war was held between two regions. In this war, Pokemon were mindlessly used as weapons of destruction, with no regard for their owner's consent or care about the damage it would soon cause. AZ was unfortunately one of those victims. His Floette was taken from him to just be used as another asset, only to quickly die in the crossfire. Struck by grief and anger, he took matters into his own hands to end the war. But not by bringing peace to others or begging for it, but instead to punish those who took away his partner. By using the ultimate weapon, his Floette was resurrected, but at the cost of thousands of lives, both human and Pokemon. Knowing what lengths AZ went to try and bring back his partner, Floette left, never to return. He was cursed with immortality, forever left to bear the guilt of destroying everything around him. All for the one thing that meant something to him. It isn't until after you become the champion that AZ confronts you again, this time wanting to challenge you to a battle. However, this battle isn't just a test of your skills, it's a test of his past ignorance, his final showdown against the mental wall that's been blocking him from finding closure these past 3,000 years. Whoever wins doesn't matter. The story continues either way, because what he wants to see is the bond that you and your Pokemon share together, just like the bond that he and his Floette had. This all comes to an emotional climax once the battle is over, as after a 3,000-year wait, his Floette finally emerges from the sky, recognizing his growth and acceptance of his past mistakes. Where him and Floette go after is unknown, but hopefully in Legends ZA, we'll get some insight into his past and future. Because AZ's story is a powerful message that being the very best isn't just about being the strongest or having the most Pokemon in your arsenal. It's about being the very best you can be at the moment. It's about accepting change, accepting that nothing in this world will ever be exactly as you want it to be, and ultimately, accepting yourself for your flaws and capabilities. Between Lysander's lust for elitism, going out of your way to give a random old stranger some solace in his final few days, being granted a godly tool to turn your Pokemon into beings of destruction, and AZ's millennia-long search for forgiveness in himself, perhaps Pokemon X and Y are the true moral masterpieces of the Pokemon series, and maybe after Legends ZA releases, people will gain a newfound appreciation for their subtleties. Beneath the flashy polygons and vibrant colors, these games are a reflection of you and the world. Your power, your decisions, your stories are all in your hands.